Hey there, solar nerds. Chris Kroll here again, managing editor of Solar Builder with another episode of Solar Distancing, where we're trying to get back to the basics of energy independence during this unfortunate pandemic that we're all living through. And today we are joined by Jeff McAndrew, the Director of Sales for Clean Energy Solutions at Generac. Hey, Jeff.
Hey, how's it going?
Hanging in there, still, showering every day, eating food, walking my dog.
No.
That's about it. How about you? Things going okay?
Yeah, everything's good. I'm pretty sure today is a Friday, but it's hard to tell.
I know, right?
Are kind of blending together, but I believe it's the end of the week. So happy to connect.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, thanks for taking the time. So today I wanted to talk about hybrid solar storage inverters. This is a newer category that maybe everyone is familiar with, and I wanted to just kind of get into the basics of what's unique about them. So let's start on the hardware side of things. What are the inner workings that make it different than a solar only inverter, or I guess then a battery inverter?
Yeah, so when you think about a PV inverter, it was designed for really one function to take DC solar power from a panel, invert it into AC, and send it to the grid. So with that, you've got really just one function, right? Inverting DC to AC. And the difference now with hybrid inverters today, specifically with our power cell inverters, we're taking DC solar power into the inverter, but before inverting it, it goes into a DC distribution panel, and then it can either flow directly into a battery as DC, or it can be inverted to AC and sent to the house or to the grid. And the big difference there is that, look, batteries, lithium-ion batteries, they all charge from DC. So if you have a Sonnen battery or a Tesla Powerwall, all good products, but they take AC power and they invert it to DC, they charge the batteries, they invert it back to AC, and then they send it to the main service panel in the house. Though the hybrid inverter, having that DC distribution panel in the inverter allows us to keep the solar power as DC into and out of the batteries. The reason that's important is because you want your homeowner needs that investment of solar to be operating as efficiently as possible. And every time you invert DC to AC or vice versa, you're losing, like 2.5% to 5%. So the ability to tie the storage directly into the DC side of the inverter, hence a hybrid inverter, solar and storage connecting on the DC side, is really its efficiency, and then additional, really flexibility in operational modes. Like not many AC coupled systems can actually sell battery capacity back to the utility. They can self-consume it, but they can't sell it. So this is an advantage functionally in places like California, where if a homeowner buys 27 kilowatt hours of AC coupled storage, for time of use, well, they might only use 10 kilowatt hours of that from 4 to 9 p.m. or 3 to 8 p.m. And the problem is, in that instance, you get 17 kilowatt hours of unused battery capacity that you paid for, right?
Yeah.
Batteries aren't cheap. Whereas with our solution, again, one of the advantages being DC coupled is our inverter can say, hey, battery, we only used 10 kilowatt hours for time of use. There's an hour left. Let's discharge the rest of the battery so the homeowner gets maximum economics.
Gotcha. And I wanted you to maybe go back to the actual kind of efficiency, the conversion aspect of things. Are these batteries, or is this set up if you're using a hybrid inverter for your solar and storage at home? Is it less efficient or more efficient than how we were doing things before? The simplicity of it setup wise makes sense to me, but in terms of on the spec sheet, are you coming, in terms of when you're going in and out of the battery, how's that match up?
It's going to be more efficient because, we've got 99% efficiency on the roof through our substring optimizers. And then into the battery, we're like 98% efficient. And then we're 98% efficient coming out of the battery. And then like 97.5, 98 going through the inverter. So what you end up with, round trip efficiency, thinking solar into and out of the battery and then to the house, you're at like 92, 93% efficiency, right? If you were to compare that to a PV only inverter with optimization, you're 99% on the roof, you're like 98% through the inverter, but then an AC coupled battery could be 86% round trip efficiency from AC to AC. So you take 99% on the roof, 98% through the inverter, and then multiply it by 86% round trip efficiency of an AC coupled battery, it's significantly more efficient to keep that power as DC. The other thing, when we look at like the way that we were doing things previously, I mean, I guess there are two ways of looking at this, right? Like Outback and Schneider, they've been doing DC coupled systems for a long time. The difference is they've been 48-volt batteries, and our platform connects on a 380-volt DC bus, so really high voltage. There's going to be less loss over longer distances. We're using 10-gauge cabling as opposed to, like 3-4-aught wire. So, I mean, there are multiple points where it's going to be more efficient, but specifically in that DC to AC conversion process, we're going to reap a lot of advantages. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. It does. That's really interesting. And so is this mainly also for on-grid solar storage applications versus off-grid?
Yeah, totally. So the reason that efficiency is so important in terms of like round trip efficiency, charging and discharging batteries on a daily basis is because, look, if you're on grid in California and or Hawaii and you're cycling that battery on a daily basis, every time you cycle the battery, you're losing, in AC coupled scenarios, you could be losing like 14% of what you started with, right? Or more. Yeah. And if you're on grid cycling batteries, it's even, if you're grid tied and you're cycling batteries on a daily basis, you need that system to be operating as efficiently as possible. On the flip side, if the grid goes down in Florida for 2 weeks, you don't want to be wasting any of the solar power on the roof, right? You're relying on that solar power to recharge the battery and back up your house. So, I mean, really in both instances, you need that system to be operating as efficiently as possible.
Right. So I guess bottom line, if you're going to do an on-grid solar plus storage setup, this just seems like it's the way to go now. Like, is there any reason you wouldn't use a hybrid solar storage inverter for the setup now?
No, I mean, you're gonna have more functionality out of the hybrid inverter. The AC coupled solution is always going to be the path for homeowners who already have solar and are looking for a battery. But if you're not offering a hybrid DC coupled inverter for homeowners who are looking for energy storage and a new solar platform today, you're doing them a disservice.
Got it. All right. Well, very cool. I want to dig into this maybe a little bit further in our next conversation. But thanks for joining us today to chat about just the basics of hybrid inverters from your basement.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure. Happy to connect again.
Cool. And to everyone else out there, be sure to stay safe, stay away, but go solar.